Everyone has something to share, in either wisdom, story, or logic, and it's clearly amazing to hear all the differing missing links discovered by people, unique to their own journeys, and in how they have come to discover them. Together, we can help to build a bigger picture for a better future, for a brighter tomorrow. Let's stand united. Let's remove the veils, and let's create a new world together. Are you that missing link? Join Jesse Hale on the Missing Link Talk Show as he helps to unveil the mystery through the unique wisdom and store of others. Only on Real Revolution Radio X.
Welcome everybody here to the Missing Link. Here we are honored to have a good friend, a brother, someone who's, recently come into my life, but, someone who I actually care deeply for. Is such a good-hearted soul, good man. How are you today, Kumara?
I'm doing well. Thank you, Jesse. Thanks for having me. And hello, everybody.
You're very welcome. Thanks for being here. And so I guess maybe we can start off with, why don't you just kind of give a brief, description or long description of, you, your journey, a little bit about, stuff that you've gone through in your life to get to where we are here today on the Missing Link.
Well, thanks for that. Well, the journey has been long, and I'm sure that does not negate anybody else's journeys because we're on each one of our paths. What I've had to do is curate and get the best of in my path, the best of what I could use for my life, and then throw out the rest. There's so much information out there. So, but also being as harmonic as I can, both for myself and those who are around me. I would say the most passionate thing that I have been into lately is just whatever I do, just do it well. And if I feel I'm not doing it well, I just do a little bit more research, cross-reference, any information that I might come across is to kind of take it with a grain of salt and then to see how it actually affects me directly and how it's affecting those around me and how people are actually react. Or first, me is how do I react to it, as opposed to how am I responding to it. They're two distinct things. So basically, when I was working with In Power, and that was a while back, we were trying to figure out our descriptions and like, oh yeah, Kumara, you're like world bridger, and I'm like, I don't even know what that means. They said, because you are into so many things that's so diverse, but you seem intense into it, but to yourself you're not intense into it because you're looking into it. To us, you're already fully in. And I'm like, well, that's a matter of perception, right? So the journey has been unfolding of how we as I would say collective, how we are as a unit. There's a lot of unity in some ways, and in other ways, there's a lot of disunity or separation, right? So even I don't want to get too political, but when even just that statement of social distancing. Well, social means connection. Distancing means disconnection. So it's connection disconnection. It causes a lot of strife in one's psychological patterning. Yeah. So I don't know if that's kind of an intro that you're looking for, because
Well, why don't you tell us where you grew up and maybe some early experiences, that kind of molded you in your journey?
well, when I was very young, I looked at things a little bit deeper than what most did. If there was a toy, I'd think, well, what's it made of? Why is it stayed structured? Why can it click together? Why is it breaking apart when you drop it? I've always asked these kind of questions. So I was born in Philippines and we moved to Vancouver, British Columbia when I just turned 2. And that was my birthday just passed, so that would have been uh, 47 years ago, 46 years ago.
So are
And
you a Canadian? Are you a
yeah, Canadian
Philippine? Are
citizen.
you a Philippine Canadian? Like, what do you consider? You consider yourself like a
More
Canadian, or are you
Canadian.
or a Philippine Canadian, or just Canadian?
Just Canadian. Yeah. Although I've never lost the language, I've never forgotten my mom's mother tongue. Uh, I could switch it on if I have to, but I'm mainly English speaking and English command. I have other varied interests too in different languages, so I speak other languages, but not as full on as English. Yeah. And then so what brought me to Alberta was it was just in 2020 in July, August. I just thought to check it out. I wanted to leave the coast. I wanted a I wanted a change. The coast and the West Coast mentality had severely changed within the last 5 years. And I was trying to figure out what the correlations were between politics as well as social climate. It's very diverse there, racially as well as culturally. It, however, I found, as well as other people who have agreed with me, that it's very segregated. So there's a lot. It's a port city. So you have all these people who are moving in. There's a huge influx, depending on what's going on in the world politically. They're coming from all sorts, like India, China, Philippines, Africa, you name it, Europe, all over Europe. They're there. So when there's a political strife happening in other parts of the world, they seem to have like congregated to Vancouver and they disperse, right? So I thought to stay there for quite some time, and then it was like a frog slowly boiling in water. It was kind of like that. I was wondering why I wasn't feeling so happy there anymore, and then I started to figure out, well, it's the consciousness here, so I'm going to go check it out in July. This was in 2020. Came to Calgary and Edmonton. And I decided to settle down in Edmonton. My Vancouverite friends they thought they said, "Are you crazy? You're going to a sub-zero freezing temperature place?" And I'm like, "There's more sun over there." And I found the people to be pretty cool there. They seem more laid back, and their perception is, "Oh, they're a redneck over there." I'm like, "Well, you can't really make a judgment until you're actually there." It's like, people ask me about, "Well, what do you think of the Bible?" I said, "I don't have no opinion about it because I didn't read it from beginning to end. I can't have an opinion, right? And if I do have an opinion, it's actually stemming from the people around me. So why should I own other people's opinions, right?"
Totally. So yeah, and like it seems like BC, there's a little more laid back. Vancouver's a little bit more high strung than most other
Yeah.
places in BC. Vancouver's, very fast paced, high pace, very money city.
Yeah.
Which, in Alberta is a little bit more laid back that way. There is a little bit more rednecky cowboyish here, but it's a good place. Like, we're as Canadians, most people are really good here. So I imagine you haven't really experienced too much, negativity, based on, your look at all
Hmm.
in Edmonton.
Yeah. I have a firm belief in, what we put out there, it comes back. And if we're going to be intense about it, we're going to be met with equal intensity or sometimes even more, right? Depending on what crowd we decide to surround ourselves with. And that's one of my interests too, is how consciousness starts to propagate, right? And who's disseminating what information and how is it being delivered and how is it being received. So to
Um,
kind of step back a little bit too, in terms of what my other interests are, like you see, my company, I'm a co-founder of ForceField EMF Solutions. That's when I became, I would say 6, 7 years ago, I identified myself as having electrohypersensitivity, which I had mitigated with certain tools like the Omni card that is available through ForceField EMF. I did a lot of research before I started to share that. I wanted to see how meditation would affect my the psyche, my response to stimuli, And it's quite interesting because when we do the the sensory deprivation, some people try the sensory deprivation tank. I've done like a 2 day dark room retreat where it's pitch black, and you can set your food aside, but you're pretty much fasting. So when your ocular nerves are not being stimulated, the other senses are actually start to heighten. Like your hearing starts to heighten, your sense of touch starts to heighten. It's quite fascinating. So I've been kind of playing around with that as well. I've done so many other things too, so we can take this in any direction you like.
So what I like, is it kind of like the sensory deprivation tanks where, you kind of deprive yourself of certain senses to
Yeah.
heighten everything else?
Those ones are short bursts because when I go for like let's say a float tank with all the lights off and you're just floating there, that's about 60 minutes, 90 to 90 minutes typically. That's what the facilities that are out there serve their customers with those different packages. I did an intense two 2 day, like 48, not 48, like 72 hours max in just total darkness. There's no stimuli, not even much music. But so basically, I'm just faced with myself, and things come up, and it's very uncomfortable because memories pop up, and it's like I don't want to think about that, but you have to face it. So basically, you're training yourself to face any challenge that you, you can come across. Like the more stimulus is hitting our five senses, even six. I find a lot of people go through a lot of it's like short circuiting. It's overstimulating. So Vipassana, I don't know if you've heard of that. I've done that for 10 days. I did the 10-day requirement, and that was actually life changing as well.
Where did you do that?
That was in Merritt, British Columbia. That was up in the mountains. Yeah, and it was. I think it would. I would say it would be one of the best things that I ever did. And my aunt one time told me, she said, "Are you crazy?" I'm like, "Well, if this craze leads to a better way of responding to life, then call it crazy if you want to." But I met friends over there, and it was also very life changing for them. A friend restaurateur for me who owns this vegan place in Vancouver. That's how he gets his recipes. I'm like, what do you mean? He goes, I just stay quiet. And he's even more intense because he does not leave the meditation room, the meditation hall. He'll sit in one pose for at least 15 hours straight, like from the morning to evening, and he won't leave. He won't even eat.
Wow.
But he kind of lives there. He said, if I run out of ideas, I just go back to the Vipassana center and I serve because he's been there for years.
Can you explain it a little bit to people? That's when you go into total solitude for 10 days?
Yeah, so basically you renounce everything. Any other meditations that you've carried with you, listening to music, writing, you're supposed to renounce all of those. So you don't do that. Be honest with yourself, and that's what the tenets are is be honest with yourself. There's no killing, there's no stimulation of any sort uh, while you're in the center. There's no eye contact, no communication. Although you are with others, you are to act as if and live as if you are there by yourself. And basically, they start turning down the amount of food also that your body is needing because you don't need to burn much anymore. You're just sitting there all day. There's 10 hours of meditation per day. And the other hours that you are staying in solitude and quietness and solitude is going out to the forest or going to the lunchroom where you're served food and you're not to communicate with anyone. So uh, it and then in the evening you have these. It's called the Dhamma Talks, which are the talks from SN Goenka. He was the one who was, I would say, he was prophesied from 2,000 years ago, around would have been 2010 is when he started to really take his centers around the world. And apparently the Buddha said there would be a soul that would be doing this, and he was the one. And when I entered it in 2013, he would have passed away a year, I believe. I believe he passed away in 2012. And so his recordings of his teachings are played every night. It's on video. And you're made to sit there as if you haven't moved. And it's quite strict. Like the bottoms of your feet, you can't even point that towards the teacher. You're supposed to curl them in a lotus pose. They said that's not cool. And during these meditations, you either feel a lot of pleasure in different parts of your body. It's very visceral. And I also experienced a lot of massive pain in my chest, all the way down to my waist on my left side. It felt like a bunch of knives coming in and twisting. And I was trained to just sit and observe it and don't run away from it. And
What do you
don't go running to the good parts of the body.
what do you think that was? Was it stuck energy?
It's stuck energy. Yeah, because I didn't quite understand what that was. And when we go through trauma or pain or even pleasure, we store that in different parts of our body, which only now has been, well, I feel it's been studied for a long time. It just hasn't been allowed to disseminate.
It's because of the pharmakia.
Yeah, exactly.
They're trying to
Yeah,
suppress any kind of thing that goes away from popping
yeah.
pills.
But truth can't be untruthed, right? So whatever is controlling that to go in that direction, it does have a shelf life. So I've been very fascinated too with my meditation, I would say, masters and friends like Drunvalo Melchizedek, as well as Daniel Mattel. I do work with them. So one of these days we'll get my book going. Yeah, because I'm also a heart imagery teacher, and that's through the School of the Heart. And that's the technology of what we have carry inside of us physically. It's the heart, right? And how is that even created? How does it split off from embryo state? Um, it splits off into the brain. It's the same material, same as the gut. That's why if we take care of our gut, our heart's good. So if any of those are like in alignment, those three main centers, because you got the primordial, they call it memory. They think memory is always up here, but it's also in the gut from a cellular and molecular and subatomic particle level. Because then you have also matter, gray matter, and antimatter. So those things that I've also studied through the Keshe Foundation. I don't know if you've heard of it, and that's with Keshe, the nuclear scientist. So those things I kind of like mix together in everything that I'm doing.
So could you
Yeah.
explain us a little bit more about what a heart imagery is, and how how
Heart imagery. It's
yeah.
basically physically putting your, like, when I say imagine it, because of semantics and languaging, right? Languaging English. The best way I can describe it is place your consciousness in the center of your brain, which is the pituitary gland, and it's actually a physical gland that had been mysterious to the medical community for a very long time. It's only been surfacing or being rediscovered from old books or even old depictions of why is the all-seeing eye, why is that it's got a correlation to this, the side view of the pituitary gland, right in the center, or pineal rather, and in front of the pineal gland is pituitary. So there's meditators, actually there's a physical eye inside the brain that's always looking upward. So even when you have cross sections of people or cadavers, it looks like an eyeball facing up. So in the school of the heart, they train you to tilt it forward, and then so you have your chakras like from here to the nose, right, and here, and then the throat. So it all lines up. So if you tilt that forward here, there is a chakra in the forward, because what there are seven main chakras after past the three main ones, and there's also 13, because you have other axes of energetic axes through the skull that actually ties to the heart. So you have this double toroid. It's really hard to explain without pictures. I don't have any pictures, sorry. But any of your viewers can check out, I believe you can Google the toroidal field around the heart and the brain. And they do work in sync. That's why it's really important to synchronize the two.
So you teach people to
To
open it up
physically go from
to
here, to go
connect
down the
it.
spine and go inside the heart. So I guide them to the heart, and there's this, it's like a doorway portal. I don't know what you call it. Drunvalo calls it a flap at one point. Open the flap and you go in. And I'm not to go in with you, whoever's doing that exercise. You go on in your own journey. And what people talk about afterwards, there's correlations. It's pretty mind blowing. I won't say anything right
Mhm.
now, because I want people to discover that for themselves.
So do you do a guided meditation for them to
Yeah,
connect? Is that kind of how,
yeah, yeah.
you walk them along to be able to open up these doors, inside of themselves?
Yes, yeah. And I'll be doing that out of Clarity, who I work with quite closely, and because they do have a lot of clients who are looking for, and even new clients coming off the street. Like from a few months ago, they would be coming in saying, "There's something going on with me. I'm starting to see stuff or feel things that I never felt before." And then these are like regular people that have these regular high paid professions, or doctors, or they work on the oil patch. They come from all sorts of places, and what's common is that they're feeling this great change that's going on, and so they're wanting some kind of guidance to help ease their discomfort. So, and that's what solutionaries in the world really have to do, is know what actually works. And just because it works for one person, it might not for the next, but people have to try these different solutions, right?
So do you
Otherwise,
think
they're just gonna like out themselves. I've known quite a few people who've you know sadly ended their lives because they didn't know where to go to next. So those who do know, I feel we have a responsibility to first take care of ourselves, and then if we're being looked upon as a guide, well, try and help, right?
well, that's the
Only it's
ultimate
being
as a
asked.
person.
Yeah, yeah.
So, I actually, had talked to someone who had, done some, I don't think it was salvia, and he left his body. He went and talked to someone in a different dimension, but with no words. And
Hmm.
then the guy told him, the older, wise man told him he needed to go back, and he didn't want to go back, and he was fighting it, and then he got trapped, and he came back into his body, but his brain was still somewhere else, and it actually took him, to the mental hospital, and he went through he wasn't prepared for, being, I guess, detached from, his own reality.
Wow, is he has he shared his story?
No, so he was actually a roommate of mine. His brother, he was from Vancouver. His brother came into town, and they had done that. And then his brother left, and then he went all like really weird, and he started buying all kinds of gifts and for everybody, for me, for people at work. And he was just totally different after this experience. And then he ended up losing his job, and then he ended up leaving the door open and just left. And then they picked him up, the police, and brought him to a mental
Wow.
hospital. And then his parents came and picked up his stuff. And I haven't really, heard anything from him after his brother came and picked up his stuff, and he went back to Vancouver. And I haven't heard anything about him since. But it's really, you can really detach yourself from reality, whether it's
Mhm,
through psychedelics or even just, people not comprehending what these other,
mhm.
areas and dimensions are in the
And
brain and
and
and the body.
and because society had become so hardened, right? And pretty much almost heartless. So when there are individuals who are that sensitive, because our field it's not within our skull, it's not within our body. Our field actually extends out.
The
So it's
toroidal
kind of like
field.
an toroidal field. It's like an antenna. So you can actually, some people can feel, even the ones who don't believe in stuff, they can feel a vibe when someone walks in the room and they're freaking angry, right? Or if they're happy, or they just bring a lighter sensation to the space by someone walking in. And it's that the intermingling of the toroidal fields, whether it's resonant or non-resonant. It's all vibration. Yeah.
So when you say that, like they're just discovering now, more studies on it, is that you think maybe by design that they didn't want people to know, and hence why they've been doing things to calcify maybe our pineal glands and things like that, and they've kind of, kind of made it frowned upon, learning about these things, and now it's just finally starting to come to light. But maybe we knew about these things many, many years ago before, this pharmaceutical system came into place.
hmm That's a very good question, because there you can look at it from two sides. Especially if you're going to be, if anyone's going to look at it from a dualistic point of view. So when we feel that suppression, how I perceive that is it's an invitation or a call out for us to look further, right? Instead of accepting it for what it is, and oh, it's so terrible, I can't do anything about it. That a lot of that I've heard that for many years, and I was once there. I can't do anything about it, but all I've discovered to do is just be myself, and it'll be I'll probably stand out as a unique person, but I'm not gonna work too hard at it, if you to put it into words, and to be able to create something, but outside the box of current understanding, right? Our innate independence and true sovereignty, I feel it's all locked within. We just have to like tap into it. And no matter what kind of challenges we are somewhat destined to find, we are also destined to have the opportunity to have access to get beyond it, to get over it, kind of thing. Not over it, like not get over it and just like slough it off. Like overstep it, but know what it is. So when there's something bad going on, well, that's I know that's what's going on, but what am I going to do with it? Am I going to fight back and try and shoot it down, or am I going to create a new system? And a system doesn't have to be complicated. It can start from the breath, right? So there's also breathing techniques as a form of meditation. Wim Hof is one, right? Which I've tried. It's really phenomenal. I tried it. My friend Jordan, he's really into it, and he's into the cold dunking. And he said, "Yeah, do these exercises." And I did these. It's like heavy breathing. He goes, "Now hold your breath for as long as you can." He timed it, and so after I did this heavy breathing technique, it was over, I think, 2 minutes. There was pauses in between, and then take a big deep breath, and then I think there was an exhale. It's been a while. Anyways, I held my breath for like 5 minutes. She said, "That's pretty good. Have you done that before?" I'm like, "No, I haven't done that." He goes, "Well, that just goes to show you is that This is how divers, deep sea divers, or those free divers,
Yeah.
they're able to do that.
Well, you see that a lot with, say in like little villages and, that are like fishing villages and stuff. And you see the people that can go down and free dive in 2, 3, 4 minutes and be able to hold their breath for
Hmm.
that long.
Hmm. So that's proof. That's just one of many, many, many things that we actually can do. Actually, humans are powerful beings. Um, we're just told that we're not. that's
That's
when
what,
it, that's when I get this charge in me, and I thought, well, I have to release that. I can't carry that kind of a, you know, because it could lead to anger. I was once angry.
the age of excuses is over.
Yeah, yeah. So we just got to step up and do the best we can. And sometimes it takes a lot of patience, right?
Yep, definitely. So you had a near-death experience?
Had three.
3. Could you
One,
maybe tell us about them?
yeah, one was at birth. Uh, I had been post mature. I had to get cut out. I wouldn't fit through the birth canal anymore. I was growing really fast. Apparently, when they C-section me out, my hair covered my nose and my eyes. Like I was like a hippie, I guess. And I do remember, I have aspects of remembering, and I've been able to talk about this because people are starting to really, they're curious about it. And only in the last year have I been able to talk about the pre-birth memories that I have. I've got snippets, um, pre womb manifestation, and as well as not wanting to come out. I wanted to go back. And
Not
I kept hearing
again.
this.
I'm
Yeah,
back here again.
exactly. That's how the emotion was. I didn't have English. I didn't have a language, but that was the emotion. And then by the time I was 2, 3 years old, I would ask tough questions. I'm like, Mom, where was I 3 or 4 years ago? She said, you weren't around. I said, yeah, I was. You weren't. I said, I remember going through the tube. It was like a light tube. It was really interesting. The second one was a motorcycle accident in 2013. 2013? 2011? I know my mom passed away at 2011, and it was, yeah, 2012. I had my accident, and I heard her voice, and it feels. I was with my friends because we were a bunch of motorcyclists that went out to the hills of Abbotsford outside of Vancouver, and I took a really steep uphill turn, and there was a bump in the road. It was sharp, sharp left, and I lost control of the bike. I was a little too overzealous. And then I went over a ditch and into a fence. I remember wiping out, and I was going to pick up the bike. It felt surreal because I'm like, am I still alive? But I remember my friends pulling me away from the bike, and they said the gas is leaking onto the exhaust, right? They said this could explode. So they sat me down. Apparently, they said I was turning gray. All I could hear was, oh, get him some tea, get him something to drink. I was going to pull my helmet off, and one of my friends said, don't pull it off. And they were arguing why I shouldn't. One guy said, well, one of my friends said, because I lost a friend in a racetrack car accident. He pulled his helmet off, and it led to an aneurysm. It was holding it in. When I sat there, everything was turning white. Then I heard my mom saying, are you coming? I'm like, you're not around here. Like, why am I hearing you? She said, are you coming? And I said, yeah. And then I stood up, and my friends were pulling me down. And all of a sudden, I said, everything was fading. Everything was turning white. And I said to my mom, I'm not finished yet. And all of a sudden, the color came back on the road, the trees around there. My friends started to appear again. I'm like, this was weird. And they said, wow, we thought we were going to lose you. I'm like, oh, okay. And they said, we got to take you to the hospital. I'm like, I hate hospitals. Don't bring me to the hospital. I just want to go to a coffee shop. So it took them several hours to get me into an emergency room.
Stubborn.
Yeah, I'm stubborn. The third one was the 5-MeO DMT experience that I didn't sign up for it, but apparently this shaman and this medicine woman said, "Oh, we're having a ceremony." It was in the place I was living. It was a it, it was a it was a villa on the west coast, and she phoned me on my WhatsApp, and she said, "Kumara, what are you doing?" I said, "Oh, I'm gonna take a sip of wine." She said, "Put that down. This medicine's calling you." I'm like, "What medicine?" She said, "Get over to the spa. We're in the spa building." So I went there, and they put me in the middle of the room. There were 7 people around because we had house guests. There was a big, huge celebration for us acquiring this property. And they said, "Oh, this medicine is calling you. We keep hearing your name." I'm like, "That's weird." And then I thought, and I was not really afraid of anything. So I'm like, okay, whatever. If this thing kills me, I don't know what this thing is. I just had faith that I'll be fine because
Well,
I've had NDEs before, so I'm not afraid of dying.
and especially knowing mom's waiting there for you, so it's not that
Yeah.
not that
So
big a deal.
yeah, so they had me take that puff, and apparently, uh, after the fact, they said you went full in. I'm like, what does that mean? They said most people who know what this is are too afraid of it. So it's their fear that actually prevents them
Hinders.
from crossing the threshold. So there's a threshold that I passed through. I literally saw myself float, and I saw my body, and I was being. If you picture a particle of a crumb on the floor and you take a vacuum and it goes up this tube, that's what happened. I went
Like,
up, I got pulled out, and I saw my friends get tinier, tinier, tinier on the ground. I'm like, what the heck? This is weird. And then I ended up in this white cloudy thing, and I guess they call it the light body. I had a body, but my third dimensional body was on the ground that I saw. And I had this light body, which eventually started to dissolve like sugar in water. I'm like, damn, am I dying? So I thought, well, there's nothing I can do now. I'm stuck. I can't. Because the more I wanted to be back on the ground, the more I got pulled out. And I kept dissolving until it was just my eyeballs floating in space. And it felt like eternity. I'm like, this is boring. And I had the thought, I just want to experience. And all of a sudden, within a split second, I I was back in my body, and I looked around, and I'm like, I saw everything differently. Everything was like light. And I looked at everybody, like some of them were strangers too, right? We had house guests. And I'm like, wow, you guys are all beautiful. Like, I turned into this like loving being. And then I jump out of my body, and something would come in. I'm like, this is weird. And it would talk to each person individually, even the ones I didn't know,
without words?
with words. And I said, oh, you, Derek, you're an interesting character. You have like really good things that you're doing for the world. I didn't even know what he did.
So energy was going into them and then coming back into you, and then you knew about them?
Yeah, I knew stuff about them. They were like, their eyes were like really, some of them were like really weirded out, but I was still kind of in a daze, so I had no judgment, right? I had no filter, I had no judgment. It just went direct. And then when it was Kumara outside of this body, something would come in, and but I'd watch it. It was weird. So perspectives would change. Who I was talking to, it didn't matter. It just flowed, whatever I said. And then I think it lasted 45 minutes. It was a macro dose, they called it. It was a heavy dose of toad venom.
So this is what Amanda said. She just came in. What did you puff on?
It looked like little white grains. They look like salt inside a glass bowl that they put flame under, and then you inhale it in.
And what was it?
Toad venom.
So
So it's
toad.
the toad from South America, that the particular species that I had. It's the sweat glands that come off their back, and then I think they take a piece of glass or something, and they touch it on the back, and they encase it in glass, and then they crystallize it.
Is it
And they
combo?
Cambo is apparently different. Cambo, I believe they burn it onto your skin.
Hmm.
This one I inhale. and I
Mike
hold for
Tyson.
as long as I can.
I think Mike Tyson talked about he did the toad venom, and
Interestingly enough, a year later, Mike Tyson came onto one of our live feeds as a surprise. We were doing it was World Yoga Day. I believe it's June 21st in 2019. And then after I think it was a 21-minute meditation that we did, we agreed that we would meet up again, those who actually showed up. Like it was Mike Tyson was there, Tony Robbins was there. There's a bunch of other MC Yogi, he was part of it. So we had a meeting, and Mike Tyson, he was in tears of because of such a beautiful event it was. Like it's such a different narrative from what he used to be. But apparently that same 5-MeO DMT changed his life as well.
what did you call that?
5-MeO DMT is the scientific, I believe, term. So it's 5 and then M,
Mhm.
letter M, letter E, 5-ME, and then 0 or O dash DMT.
Which would relate to the frog venom.
Yeah, dimethyl. I forgot how you say it, but it's pretty much DMT. There's synthetic DMT, and then there's natural DMT. That I took the natural one because that's like it's kind of like an how would I put it? It's an induced death because on during the death process, everyone has the DMT molecule that apparently resides in the pineal gland, and when you die, that actually releases. So that's a natural painkiller, and it's very euphoric. Uh, it's some had described it to me as like the universe's greatest gift, like a massive orgasm. Well, orgasmic in the sense that you're so elated, like there's no worries, there's no judgment, you're super happy, there's no pain. That's why sometimes when people are given too much morphine, their death process is actually disturbed. There's a book that my auntie or my adopted mom, Indian, she read this book by Stephen Jenkinson called Die Wise. That's a pretty interesting book apparently, and it was her childhood friend who actually also wrote a book. I call her Auntie Bear. Her name is Anita, and her last name is Morjani. Have you heard of her?
Anita Morjani, yeah, that's
Yeah.
Angeline's favorite, one of her favorite,
Oh,
people.
cool. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I call her Auntie Bear. I went to see her one time. She came to Kelowna, so I went to see her there. And yeah, her experience is phenomenal too, right? Because she had a really bad form of a cancer, and she was after her NDE, she was fine within, I think, even less than 3 weeks or even just days.
Legions all over her body. She was
Yeah,
supposed to
disappeared.
die. She
Uh
was
huh.
going to. They gave her, only a few days to live, and she crossed over and
Yeah.
came back and healed all the legions and just
Hmm.
healed herself.
Yep. So access to certain vibration, like you've heard of vibrational therapy, right? There's
Hmm.
all sorts out there. I have a pulsed electromagnetic frequency mat. That's a vibrational therapy. So is the pyramid that you've experienced at Clarity, with the rodent coil. There's so many things. Like even the oils that our friend Gary actually comes up with, it carries a vibrational signature, right?
Hmm.
That's why the treatment of tumors that are alternative. I don't know if you've heard of. Uh, it's an electro. It's electro. It's not electroshock. It's ah, shoot. I forgot what the name is. My friend, she has this box and it has a bunch of dials, and you hold these rods, and then sometimes she puts pads on you, and she puts an electrical charge through your body. Quite often you don't feel it. Some things you can feel, and that actually removes anomalies in the bodies like tumors and stuff. There's so
Uh,
much solutions out there.
yeah, Angeline's got something like that. sh-
Electrotherapy or something. Yeah.
Yes, so it's some kind of
Yeah.
it's some electro shock. So what they do is people, like, if you're starting to catch a cold or something, you
Hmm.
can do this. And I actually went through this with Angeline, where she calls hers a zapper. So that's what
Hmm.
she calls it's a zapper, but
Hmm.
it zaps and it puts these electro frequencies in you, and it's able
Yeah.
to take any of these negative, bacterias or whatever it is. It helps to dispel it outside of the
Hmm.
body.
Yeah. And there's tools like the Rife machine, right?
Mhm.
Uh, Quantum biofeedback. My friend Kathy, she decided to at random. This was when I had my heart broken in January. She did a quantum biofeedback. She goes, "There's like four black entities around you." And I'm like, "What are you talking about?" She was going to clear it, and I'm like, "I don't know what you're doing." She said, "I'm on my quantum biofeedback machine. It's called a Skio. A wonderful piece of invention equipment." But she did something. Something did shift. I'm like, I feel better. Like it, I felt this heaviness. I couldn't see it. So there's that. There's so many things, right? Yeah.
So great experiences. Thanks for
Yeah.
sharing those.
Hmm.
You mentioned your adopted mother, and
Hmm.
from becoming your friend. You've told
Yeah.
us a little bit about you being very immersed in the native
Hmm.
culture. So can
Yeah.
you maybe tell us a little bit about that?
Well, the the native cultures from around the world, there's certain correlations in terms of they all say the same thing. We have to remember. I keep I to me it was such a clue, and I didn't quite understand what it was. Now I'm starting to get it. It's because when we go back, like pre dawning of man, I would say, some people say the Atlantean times. That's when there was great knowledge and it had crumbled. It was, or I think they just abused it, and they abused the technology that they had. And then so I think it must be a law of nature gets taken away. I feel we're at that cusp. This is all going to get taken away if it further gets abused. So when they say we got to remember who we really are, that's going back to like heart technology. That's when I get really interested in using that kind of inner biological technology that we all carry to to supersede what the mainstream narrative is at current.
So, what I think is that, things get reset all the time. And maybe the
Hmm.
last one was the, Tartarian mud floods, maybe 300, 400 years ago. Before that, we get these technologies, we get these people that want to control other people, that want to destroy things. And, it's that fight and then all of a sudden, Mother Nature kicks in and, gives us another reset to try to, get us on the right path.
Hmm.
And I think that we communicated a lot with our telepathy, and we communicated a lot without words. And I think words are, really have been, paramount in us dividing ourselves from each other.
Hmm. That's true. Another interest of mine was also etymology and how words evolve and the true meaning of the root word. It doesn't disappear, it's always there, it just gets buried. There's another label that gets slapped on whatever word is then created. So the true essence of a highest form of communication, like you said, it stays intact when we just leave it there. When we're going to telepath something, just leave it there. We don't need to put too many labels around it, because that's a source of separation actually when you start breaking things down. Distancing.
I say you can only separate yourself from yourself.
Yes. Yeah, you got it.
And we've been programmed that way. We've been programmed not to use our senses.
Hmm.
We've been programmed with, you know how you see a cat or a dog, they'll see this energy and they're just looking at somewhere. But if you're
Hmm.
a child and you can see something, no, that's, you're just imagining it. No, you're seeing it. Or if you're on the
Programming.
or the religious part, no,
Hmm.
that's a demon. No, you can't, and really scaring people away from,
Hmm.
understanding our true energy and our true vibrations, and understanding that there's more than just us here. Apparently, we only see 10% of what's actually here in this plane.
Hmm. Yeah, and then with the latest technologies, there's two sides to the technology. Really great, like we're communicating now, like we couldn't before, despite the separation that's being pushed. Uh, but this is a source of uh, connection, and because of everything is fine tuned now, they're now measuring things in the Planck scale. Are you familiar with Planck?
No.
Planck. That's Max Planck was the one who discovered the subatomic particle, and a friend of mine, Nassim Haramein, he's the physicist and scientist who actually can measure, and through calculations, he's a mathematician as well. They can start measuring energy in a subatomic particle scale. So, like a grain of sand, how much energy is actually stored in there that we most of us can't comprehend.
Well, everything is frequency and
Yeah.
vibration, and everything is vibrating around us. Even this
Hmm.
table or this microphone, it's vibrating. It has energy in it.
Hmm.
There is energy put into making it, and it's
Yeah.
vibrating. And if you can actually, pinpoint and see, you could actually see, solid things vibrating.
Hmm. Yeah. And some people actually can feel it. You know about dowsing?
No.
Dowsing is it's a very subtle energetic tool. There's many tools. Some people use pendulums. That's a dowsing tool. Some people are themselves a dowser. They can even use their arm to find water. Uh, the the willow tree, the branch of a willow tree. If you have a Y fork in it, you can actually find water. It'll bend down. So they've used that for a long time. And I believe they also use dowsing tools like that to find landmines. So soldiers have actually used that,
Hmm.
um, so that they can avoid these things exploding. So there's so many stories out there that have been buried because of pop culture, right? So whatever can distract the masses, that if I wanted to do it, I could, but I choose not to. Because that,
Patricia said she's done dowsing for water with coat hangers. Her parents called it
yes,
water witching and used
yeah,
that
I've done that.
Y-shaped willow branch.
Yeah, I've done exactly what she has done. I used because I didn't know anything about it because I like researching things myself. I took old coat hangers when I was a caretaker at a 13-bedroom housing unit for new pilots, young pilots for airplanes. So I was taking care of the house. There was a mysterious illness that this young woman pilot was experiencing. She was getting internal bleeding, and I did research, and I thought, well, maybe I should douse, right? So I tried it. I walked around the house, and these coat hangers would cross every time I'd walk forward, and every time I'd pass a certain spot, it would open up again. I'm like, this is weird because I'm holding it like really straight, like really carefully, gingerly. It would be like this, and then I'd go forward and I'd go like that. I back up, and it would do this. I'd keep going, it would do this, keep going forward, and it would do this again. I'm like, whoa. So I did that around the house, and I mapped it. The strongest line actually went through her bed, through her abdomen.
Wow.
So I
So
said, "Can we move your bed?"
was it some kind of a
It
vortex or
was a
something
lip.
that was?
It was either I believe it was a ley line because I was specifically looking for ley lines. I looked into how to do that. And then when we moved her bed, she thought it was the weirdest thing. I said, "Can I look inside your bedroom?" Like I didn't even enter. I said, "Can you move that bed from there to close to the window?" She said, "Well, too much light. I can't sleep." I said, "Well, can we try it?" And then she goes, "I'm not bleeding anymore." This was I think it was a week later. because she was spending $800 every visit to go to, because she's from India. Every time she went to the hospital in Delta, she was paying $800.
Wow, and I imagined
Yeah,
not being able to sleep because of the light is a lot
yeah,
better than
yeah.
bleeding on
I,
the bleeding on the
I,
inside.
exactly. Well, I was still skeptical, so I took other students and I said, "Hey, I got these hangers. Can you like walk outside the house and keep them straight as you walk forward?" And it would cross at the same spots. They said, "Why is this doing this?" I'm like, "I don't know." But inside, I was thinking, "Holy shit, there's something to this."
Wow.
Yeah. So basically, from a physiological standpoint, it's basically our how our cells are formulated, which is hexagon. When it's disturbed, it somehow it's the coat hanger. It's like an antenna that is responding to, I believe it's ionic, negative and positive ions. So when um, we thrive on negative ions. So when there's a spike in positive ions, it causes a disturbance and it makes those things flap around. Sometimes they'll flap like this, but quite often, if they are shaped the same size and length and weight, they will equally do it. But that's a simple test that anyone can do. It's a fun thing. I thought it was fun discovering something that was just weird.
That's fascinating. And
Yeah.
there is a lot of different, energy points. There's different
Mhm.
things, and people could be getting affected negatively by something and getting these physical ailments. And it could just be, like you said, where
Mhm.
they're sleeping, or, maybe their house is in one of these, negative affected areas
Yeah.
where, and people that are more sensitive than other people will be affected a lot more.
Yeah. Our thoughts have a lot of effect on our bodies also. Right. So we have, I believe it's 49 main meridian points that are tied to our hands and our feet. Right. So, and that's where reflexology comes in too. Study of the points in the foot, where it's tied to the intestine, to the brain, to the eyes, to the ears. It's the same thing. How things are connected. It's quite fascinating on how our bodies are built.
I went to reflexology my very first time. And at the time, I had stopped drinking alcohol, but I was still doing lots of, recreational, synthetic drugs. And the girl was massaging my feet, or the reflexology, and I fell asleep. And I woke up, and she says, "Do you do a lot of, ecstasy?" And I was like, "No." And I said, "Why do you ask?" But it was like MDMA that I was doing. And
Aha. Yeah.
she's like, "Well, I can feel a lot of callus on your heart." And she's like, "You should probably slow down, because, I can feel that." That was it. Never touched it again. Haven't done a synthetic drug since that girl massaged my feet like 7 years
That's
ago.
amazing.
I
That's amazing.
couldn't believe that somebody, and she didn't know me at all, that could just massage my feet, and I fell asleep. I woke up and she's telling me that I'm doing too much ecstasy, and ecstasy was like MDMA. It's kind of a derivative of
Yeah.
it, so it's similar.
Mhm.
And she's telling me to slow down because I got callus on my heart. That was it. Never again. Never touched synthetic
Wow.
drugs ever again.
That's that's phenomenal. That's actually quite profound.
Yes, I couldn't believe it. Like, if some stranger's telling me to slow down. And at the time, because I had stopped drinking the alcohol, we were doing a lot of these, recreationals. Psh, never again.
Wow. Well, good for you for your transformation. Little did you
Thanks.
think. Who would have
Well,
thunk, right?
yeah, I stopped drinking alcohol. 6 months
Me
later, I
too.
stopped synthetic drugs, and then 6 months later, I stopped smoking cigarettes. So those were the three biggest transformations that took me out of the, crazy Jesse party lifestyle to, finding out more about me, and taking me on this journey of healing, and wanting to help heal the world.
Hmm. Well, thanks for your work and continuing on with pulling out the deeper truth in each one of us.
we're just, everybody's got say story, and everybody's
Yeah.
got, information, and you may not resonate with, everybody, but maybe there's someone that you can listen to that comes here on the missing link that may just give you that piece of information that helps you along your journey. And it makes it all worth it with all the different people that tell me about how much they appreciate different speakers. And I really like the feedback. I really like when people tell me and stuff. So
Hmm.
tell us a little bit more about your native or indigenous connection.
Oh, those connections actually happened when I was doing a lot of research on how contracts work. And it was Chief Capilano who kind of became almost like he pretty much also adopted me.
Second
And
father.
so, yeah, he passed away in April. And he almost every night he said, "Oh yeah, I flew again." I'm like, "What are you talking about? Does your body like rip through the walls?" And he goes, "No, it's consciousness." He goes, "No, I traveled to certain places." And he said, "The this sorry, cat just popped up here."
All good.
um, uh, yeah, it was a study on the truth that what he had gone through, right? And he was doing a lot of work with other sovereign chiefs in actually in North America as well as the world. Even the Hopi, he was working with the Hopi as well as the um, uh, Gujiri, believe is his name. He's the Aboriginal sovereign chief in Australia. So I was their direct communications director at the time. I would set up the meetings. I'd listen in, and I'm like, oh my god, it was like another world. It was another world. The things that he experienced. He actually served the federal government of Canada an affidavit, 42 pages. I could not read past the second page because in the second page, in fine print, it I don't even know if I should say it. It's very upsetting. I'll say it because that was his truth. When he was 12, he would witness live babies being tossed in a fire. I couldn't get past that.
After that was too
Yeah,
much for you.
too much. Yeah. I saw the other things too. They said, "Oh yeah, they used to hang me by my hands up to the ceiling, my toes barely touching the bed because I refused to sing God Save the Queen or Oh Canada."
So
But
this
he was
is so this
um,
was the RCMP, like this was the Catholic Church. This
Catholic
was
Church.
the
Yeah,
Catholic Church
it
that
was Catholic
was
Church. Yeah.
doing these
Oh
sacrifices,
yeah.
and they
Oh
were
yeah.
doing
Uh-huh.
genocide on
Yeah.
the Native Americans.
Yeah. My mom was a very naughty little girl when she was young in the Philippines, and so her mother sent her to a German convent, also Catholic. My mom would tell me stuff not as deep as what Chief Capilano shared with me, but the way they used to hit her if she would press a wrong note on the piano. Oh yeah, they take a meter stick and pound her knuckles. But luckily, my mom was a fighter. She'd actually pound the knuckles back of the Mother Superior. But these things occurred, right?
This was in Canada?
That was in the Philippines.
No, but the with the babies being tossed?
Oh, that was in Canada.
That was Canada.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So Kanata is actually the actual true if name for these lands, right?
Kanata.
Yeah, and the country is an idea. I
Well,
didn't know that. Like the
country's a corporation.
corporation, yes. And because I was interested in etymology, I would tell him when he said it's a corporation. I'm like, yeah, dead entity. He goes, I said, well, they don't call it spelling for nothing. So we have to dispel it. That's what I used to tell him, and he used to laugh. Oh, yeah,
So Kathleen, was when you mentioned it before, it's etymology, and
etymology.
she put fat. I think
No,
that's what she was
not
saying. Not
etymology. And uh, ETYMOLOGY. Yeah, etymology.
Angeline, she went into a really strict Christian or religious school, and her old school whipped us in the principal's office, and they got closed down when they found out. Also, a deep religious school. They were doing whippings and things. She was going to that school, and once they found out what was happening to the kids, the school ended up getting closed down. And she was in that
And that
school, and
wasn't even residential school, no?
I don't think it was a residential. I think it was a religious, I'm not sure what it was, if it was Catholic or, or Christian, but, she had some pretty wild upbringing. But this is more, like this is only, 30 some years ago, right?
Hmm.
Maybe
That's
25 to
recent.
30. That's a
Hmm.
lot more recent than,
Yeah.
some of this horrendous things that happened, because of, the Queen and the Roman Catholic Church.
Hmm. Well, Chief Capilano was also working with the Siksikitet Sitapiskaku, which is here on Blackfoot Country, where we're on right now. And they were coming across some certain things too, like even like cloning places, right? They were trying to expose. So, but they were up against. They were barking up some trees. I guess some people some have to do it, right? Um, and but they were fighters. So I was the curious guy working with these fighters. They were like warriors, and they were pretty much, I would say, shrouded from the general public. They don't like to mix in with. They don't like to go to the cities. They don't like to mix with the, they say, regular folk. And the Blackfoot people are huge. I don't know if you met any.
Yeah, I've been
They're
I've
huge. They're
I've
like close to 8 feet tall. I'm like, whoa.
well, I've never met any of those, but I've
Yeah.
really immersed myself in the native culture.
Mm.
My first sweat lodge I went to was about 30 years ago.
Hmm.
And, I ended up meeting the medicine man from the Tsutsuna.
Hmm.
And I used to go help him build. We used to go in the forest. He'd tie a big log onto the back of his truck, and we'd pull out this old dead tree. We'd chop it up, we'd build the fire, put the rocks on it, and and we'd set up for the sweat lodge every single Sunday. We'd do this sweat at the thing. So I really, enjoy, sweat lodges, and I really enjoy the native culture. And it's really sad
Hmm.
that the one of the biggest genocides that has happened since the history of mankind is so not talked about, because 300 years ago there was over 100 million Native Americans here in North America, and now
Hmm.
there's less than 10 million. So that's 90%, more than 90% decimation of
Hmm.
their population.
250 million natives were actually uh, euthanized. That's
250. This is
in North America.
worldwide?
No, just in North America.
Oh, wow. I thought it
Yeah.
was 100 million that were here. So
Yeah. Yeah. 250 million. And that was back then when the population wasn't really high in the world, right? So figure out that ratio. That's a lot.
well, they seen them as a big threat.
Yeah.
And
Well, with the threat that was looked upon, well, that's why the food sources were taken away, right? The buffalo were killed, right? And the poison blankets came. But a lot of people now know about poison blankets, but when I was in school, we didn't know about that.
hmm,
Yeah.
some people try to say that, that didn't happen, and, that's just another psyop and things like that. But this is the stuff that has happened to the indigenous is crazy. And, I even heard, because, have you heard of adrenochrome? And,
Yes, I
the
do. I have heard of that. That's from the tortured youngsters.
So apparently the indigenous blood is one of the most sought after
Hmm.
adrenochromes, and that's one of the reasons why these, elite sicko, rings, wanted to, harm these natives so much, is because of their sought after blood. They have, this blood. And then the other part is it competed with their natural medicines, competed against the pharmacia, against the pharmacists. They didn't want natural medicines. They want to, promote their poison pills.
Yeah, when I was in Shawam country, which is Shuswap, I was shown different plants. Like this was all dirt roads up in the mountains. Like wait, like I wouldn't even know how to get there now. I don't remember. But they'd point out plants. So like, oh yeah, this actually is that cures cancer. And I'm like, wow, that's fascinating. They said, don't you share that with anybody. I'm like, why not? And then they kind of looked at me like this. They said, we'll have to kill you if you do. And then I got it. I'm like, oh, I think I know why. I know why. So
They would
just
get
leave it
killed
be.
if it
It
got
would kill
out.
me. They said if you ever share this with anyone, we'll kill you.
But what I mean is that if you did share it,
Yeah.
and then
It
they
would
found out, then they would
they would
come and
kill
they
it.
would want to kill. They would want to
Yeah,
kill the
they chop
village,
it up. Yeah.
take all the stuff.
Yep.
They'd want to cut out that competing, something that's
You got it.
competing against these.
That's why they said that.
That's why they said it to you, because
Yeah.
their lives were literally
Yeah.
at risk by sharing this with you.
Yeah. And then I said, it's an honor for you to share with me. Thank you. And I fully understand, right? Right. And they're like, good. They said, yeah, because you're our friend. That's why we share that with you. You might need it one day, right? So, but to get there, it's a journey because you have to take so many roads and off roads and yeah, I'd have to have someone in the vehicle with me to point in that direction again. But there's natural medicines everywhere, in all sorts of places. I actually take Nigella seeds. I don't know if I should say that. Have you heard of Nigella seeds?
No.
Black cumin seed.
So
It's
is this the
it's an
poppy seed?
Black cumin. It's that's what it is. It's not poppy.
Okay.
Cumin. Yeah, it's cumin. It's black cumin. But the specific thing is the Nigella, I believe it's called. It's very pungent. It's used in Indian cuisine. Yeah. So that's an alternative to ivermectin.
Really? So it helps take out parasites?
It actually will kill pathogens as well. It will address parasites as well. I have
So
other anti-parasitic solutions like nanosoma. I don't know if you've seen that.
no, so where do you get this black cumin? Because I know I have cumin, the kind of the stuff that looks like turmeric color,
Yeah.
and I use that on a lot of the stuff that I, whenever I cook anything with tomatoes, I put cumin into it.
Okay, the black one is.
No, but it's the cumin that looks like it's more kind of a turmeric color.
Oh, okay, yeah. The actual stuff that I'm talking about, it looks
Mhm.
like that, except the color is jet black. Yeah, jet black. It's not shiny, it's matte black. Yeah.
And do they have this at health stores, or like where would you
Some
find?
health stores might have it. Some might have it in a tincture form or an oil, like Nigella seed extract or an oil. I just take the seeds raw and I chew on it. Most people think it's gross. It's pretty strong. But I'm used to Indian food, so it's fine. That black cumin. You'll actually see it in naan bread, or it's predominant in that really crispy bread that they have. It's very crispy. They have it as an appetizer. I forgot what it's called.
I like the naan bread. So Tara says here, ajawain is the name of the herb in Indian. Ajawan.
That
Ajawain.
sounds familiar. Yeah, yeah.
Good stuff.
Herbal
So
shops. Yeah, herbal shops would have it.
get it, and this is like, do you do this like every day or once a week, or like
Have
what?
every morning. I take a pinch.
And that's how does it help with breath? Does it give you like this good morning breath, or does it do the opposite?
It's spicy. It's spicy. You get spicy breath. But I follow it with because I am on a protocol. I do prophylactics. So the liposomal vitamin C. Have you heard of liposomal vitamin C?
I know we have a friend, Melissa, who she has a lot of health products through
Yeah.
Viseo
It's like an
that
oil.
that they do it through liposome, I
Yeah,
believe.
liposomes, you can actually, because you'll absorb it through the stomach, and rather than, let's say, vitamin C supplements getting burnt up in the acid, in the hydrochloric acid, I believe that's in our tummies. So if it's in a liposome, you'll absorb it a lot better, so you can have a lower dosage.
Hmm.
Yeah. And then I supplement with D as well, vitamin D, especially when there's less sunlight. No.
So I worked for a tanning lotion manufacturer, and I was the marketing and education coordinator. And once I got hired, I had to research everything because, to properly do, at least my job, I would want to know every single thing. So I read all of the studies, the sun scare, all the stuff, the pharmaceuticals, found out that most of these cancer institutes are owned by the pharmaceutical companies that are,
Wow.
they own most, so if you did cancer foundations owned by
Mm.
pharmaceutical companies, all
Oh yeah,
these
I
things are
believe
owned
that.
by pharmaceuticals. So one thing that I found out in the Northern Hemisphere, we only get vitamin D from the sun 4 months of the year. The other 8 months of the year, there's very little to no vitamin D. So even though, like, in Calgary, in the middle of January, we have a schnook where it's, plus 15 or plus 17, it's hot and it's sunny. We don't get vitamin D from the sun at that
Hmm.
time because of the angle of the sun that actually
Hmm.
bounces off a certain way. So we don't actually get vitamin D. So having vitamin D supplementation is really, really important because
Hmm.
90 to 95% of the population is actually vitamin D deficient.
That's correct. And then, well, I also supplement with copper and zinc, and that will deliver oxygen into the each cell. So that's important as well.
Very
And that vitamin D that you mentioned too, yes, very important. I believe it's delivered through that scalar energy that you're talking about. It doesn't get delivered, and that's actually correlated with a lack of vitamin D to depression, right?
everything.
Yeah,
Almost
or the
every type
seasonal
of
affective disorder.
ailment, almost, yeah, the SADS, the seasonal
That's yep.
yes, but almost every single ailment that people have as a direct correlation to mineral deficiencies, specifically vitamin D. Vitamin D deficiency or nutrients. If you're deficient in things, your body's not proper working optimally, and hence, then all of a sudden these other things start to pop up in the body.
Hmm. That's true. Yeah. So there's lots of solutions out there. We just have to find them, and then connect up with people like you, right? So it's all about the how community actually works. When I was doing studies in Ubuntu means I am because of who we all are. That's the old expression that came out of Africa.
The Ubuntu communities where 5,000 people work together, and you only have to work 4 hours a day for this whole community to run,
Hmm.
to run symbiotically.
Yeah, yeah, it doesn't take much, especially when you have less waste, right?
Well, 4 hours
When
a week,
you,
4 hours
yeah,
a week.
yeah,
That's all each person
hmm,
has. If there's a community of 5,000 people, each person puts 4 hours per week into the community, and
hmm,
everything is taken care of.
yeah. It's the opposite of a make work project, but then leads to abundance.
How
It's
beautiful
just
is that?
yeah, exactly. It's following the laws of nature, actually. Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about Drunvalo and your meeting with him and who he was, and is he's still alive?
He's still alive. A lot of people thought he had passed away because he went quiet for about, I believe, 5 years.
I remember we talked
And then
about that. You
we
weren't
did, yeah.
sure at the
I
time.
Well, I was just gonna meet him because I was working with Unify, and my buddy, the co-founder of Unify, said, "Do you want to come travel and meet Drunvalo?" I'm like, "That's pretty cool." And then so the way it was set up, it was just a casual, like a coffee talk between Drunvalo and Daniel's wife Agati, who actually founded this School of the Heart. Drunvalo had a discussion, and Adil, the co-founder of Unify, he said, "You want to like take a video, like just like live stream it?" I'm like, "Okay." So I just started live streaming it, and I think it was half an hour in, people were starting to like It was starting to cause a stir. I didn't even know. And by the end of that day, I think there was like 20,000 people watched it. I'm like, this is crazy. Why is it like this? And Adil said it's because he went quiet, and because we couldn't get the Unify thing to work, I believe, the APO or whatever it was on the phone. He said, let's just use yours. I'm like, okay. So all of a sudden there was all this attention as Drunvalo's interviewer. That's what people identify me as. So and he since then, like I was there in Sedona with him for about a week, and it happened to be on my birthday. It was my birth week. So it was fun because Daniel's birthday is the day after me. So we decided to celebrate it there and do some work together. And he was talking about his preceding books as well as his upcoming books. He's got 3 upcoming books it's overdue to be printed. But there's some stuff going on behind the scenes that kind of delayed it. So hopefully by after Christmas something will shift. COVID kind of mixed things up a lot.
Yeah,
Delayed a
it's
lot of things.
kind of changed the whole course of history, we're
Yeah.
seeming to find out.
And that's why people ask me, who are part of that community, oh, why aren't you writing a book? I'm like, because I can't write something that doesn't feel complete to me yet. There's still information that I'm waiting for. I don't know exactly what that is, but the timing's not right yet. But in
That's
due
kind
time, I will.
that's like me thinking about getting a tattoo.
Hmm.
I'm like, I just things are still so evolving that, would I want something that I put on my body 5 years from now or 10 years from
Hmm.
now? I
Hmm.
don't know, because things are still evolving,
That's right.
things are still evolving so much that, because of kind of the same kind of principle.
That's right. As bad as it seems for a lot of people, I feel we're going through an upgrade because we're falling into new information, right? And a lot of people are arguing over the new information. But that's when I turn to elders like the elders, the ones who have had access to a lot of information for a long time, and they've been able to curate uh, good systems for their families without the so-called grid, right? When I went to the Parliament of World Religions in 2018, there was, I don't know how many countries were there, but every single room in the World Trade Center in Toronto was full.
Parliament of Religions,
World
world
religions.
religions. So that
Yeah.
means everybody had kind of a representative of all the different religions in the world coming
Yeah.
together
And
in
then,
one place.
yeah. And then the part of religion that we weren't taught, they all had the same message. Just do good for yourself and do good for one another.
Golden rule.
Yeah. And that's what it was about. I'm like, that's really fascinating. So they had people like another indigenous fellow, I forgot his name. He's from the East Coast, and he created a resonator based out of copper tablets that he has been gifted from apparently an extraterrestrial source. So these resonators, I watched one of his videos and I totally got it. He's got wafers of quartz crystals, and inside it looks like a hockey puck, a small one like this. And there's, I think, 108 in a circular pattern on a disc. And it looks like a teepee. And I think they are guitar and piano strings strung all along with different harmonics. And when the slight wind hits one of the strings, they're all constantly vibrating, which causes a piezo effect on the crystals. And then he stores that electricity in some kind of battery that he created. So for his community of, I believe, 30 people in the last 40 years, he's produced their own power. He's
That
been
is
threatened before, but
that's
he's kept
amazing.
quiet until I come across this character. He's quite a character. Um, but the stuff that he's come up with, it's pretty phenomenal. People buy he's got a special mirror. He calls it the magic mirror. It produces power.
I want a
I think
magic
too long.
mirror.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's what he's been doing to support his family and community. But they've kept
Wow.
quiet because they've had to.
I've heard of people over the years. I remember 30 years ago, someone came up with a perpetual motion engine, and it
Hmm.
would just, you just started it and it just ran perpetually. It
Yeah.
didn't need fuel, and it
Hmm.
just always went. And they came, he was going to come out, and they came, they took all his stuff, they killed him, and
Yeah.
that was it.
Yeah.
And like, look back, in the early 1910s or 1920s when they had the cars, it was run by electric, and it went for, like hundreds, or maybe it was 1,000 miles they could go on this electric car. And now, 100 years later,
Hmm.
trying to get 500, kilometers out of, one charge is
Hmm.
tough. How things have, been taken away from us in order
Hmm.
for, and most of it has been the oil barons, the oil
Yeah.
industry, oil and
Hmm.
gas, the oil barons, the robber barons. These
Yeah.
are the ones that have really bought up and destroyed any good technology in order for them to pollute the air, pollute the rivers, pollute the oceans, pollute everything with their, I think it's the earth's blood. I really think it should stay
Hmm.
in the earth. I don't think it
Hmm.
should be taken out
I
and
agree with you.
burned, because I think it's the earth's blood. Like, I really believe that. And like you said, we've got all these technologies. And I always thought, if you wanted to power something, why wouldn't you just use salt water? We got enough ocean that we could just,
Oh
and
yeah. What?
and we could just put salt water into
Mm.
these things. What would come up, it would be, go up into the air. It would be clean, sustainable, and it wouldn't be polluting or poisoning anything.
Well, there were saltwater batteries that were available 5 years ago when I was going in on this off-grid property with my friend. We were saving up for saltwater batteries. A year later, gone. They can't be found. Yeah. And because it was so environmentally friendly, if it ever tipped over and spilt into the ground and the soil, it wouldn't hurt. It's not acid.
Oh no, salt water. Oh, how horrible it would be to put salt water into the soil.
Yeah. But all this, I would say, free information is now literally becoming free. You don't really have to dig too far anymore. For the ones who feel they have to dig too far, it's because they're just part of, and it's not their fault. It's just they were a product of what had been created, right? The Matrix. I love that show or movie. We're in those times.
It's just explains, how deep the programming is through
Mhm.
propaganda, through
Mhm.
indoctrination, through, television, radio, internet, everything that they're doing in order for people to mold them into a certain programmable slave mentality.
Mhm. That's right. And if this is any consolation, you don't have to fight too hard. All what everyone has to do is postulate and question. That's all. Just question it, right? So even every good information that I come across, I question it. I'll cross-reference it with other entities that don't really cross paths with one another. Uh, you know that it's part of, I believe it's a CIA operative, and it got out, and it's called problem reaction solution.
Hmm.
Do you know about that?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I've started to see that really starkly in my face, I would say 5 years ago. I'm thinking, oh, interesting. And then, okay, well, because I've come across this, what do I do next? Just take care of myself. That's it, right? Find the good things. And then the ones who care enough about themselves, they'll ask, and then I'll share it.
And like you said, for anybody who really wants to find the answers, you can just ask. And you
Hmm.
can sit quiet, ask source, ask the energy around you, please show me what I need, please show me these things. And if you have a direct, communication where you can actually be able to absorb the information that's coming from around us, then we can actually get, the knowledge that we need from the energy that's, here for us.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's everywhere. It's all around. That's true. Well put.
What does your friend think about the mystery schools?
My friend, which friend?
You.
Oh, okay. Uh, I feel that there is a need to put forth the knowledge of the mystics as well. Uh, Back in 2006, I had come across what had happened to the Gnostics. Right? They weren't religious. They just understood how to, in a good way, manipulate energy,
Connect to
connect
energy,
without
and
abusing it.
yeah.
That's where the fall actually happens, and when there's a abuse to intelligence that is taken to be like demigods, that's not okay.
No.
Yeah, use it to help yourself, and help propagate, I would say, healthy societies, instead of make them fight with each other. Like, that doesn't even make sense.
No. The war mentality has
Yeah,
got to go.
yeah, it's done. Yeah. So if that answers the question, I'm pretty strong on that one. Um, it could be based as an opinion. For me, it's more of a feeling.
Do you know who Cryon is?
I've heard of Cryon. I believe he or it or she's a channeler. Yeah.
I'm
Is
not
that
sure. It
true?
just said listen to Cryon, so I'm
Oh,
just wondering.
okay.
That's
But
what Tara just said. Listen to Cryon. So I'm wondering if.
okay. Yeah, there's probably some vibrational messages there. Thanks for that, Tara. Yeah.
So, can you tell us a little bit about, more about Drunvalo, and what he was about, and how he's helped you along your journey?
He had come up with a series of books, I believe, in the mid 90s. And I've come across one of his books, the only one that I read back in 2008. It was called The Ancient Secrets of the Flower of Life. And through his journey and his travels around the world, where he found, the seed of life, the tree of life, the flower of life that had been inscribed in different places like tombs and pyramids, that had been inscribed by some kind of laser, right? Because in our current technology, we can't cut through granite with that kind of precision. And so he carries a really, I would say, a special um, energy or existence. He's very childlike, like in person. Like he plays with energy. He apparently, I haven't witnessed this, but Daniel has, that he had been gone for like 3 days. And he'd asked Drunvalo's wife, "Is he dead?" He goes, "No, he'll be back." And it took 3 days, and then his heart started again.
So he was
Yeah,
able to be in like a bed or like a
yeah.
couch or like somewhere where
I
he
think he laid in some kind of pyramid.
he so he laid in a pyramid,
Yeah,
and he was there for 3 days
three
without his
days.
heart beating at all, like not even
It
a
may have beat it probably once every 2 minutes. I don't know how that works. I didn't ask him anything about that actually, but I knew about that. I didn't get any intel on how. When I was with him, I was actually really quiet because I'm more observant. Yeah, but that's what actually I I was told caused his wife to say that guy's carrying something pretty unique, right? So it was a year later. That's when Daniel said, "Oh, Claudette saw something in you." I'm like, "Oh, what?" She said, "She feels that you are from the Adamic race." And he said, "I would agree because it's in your palms." See the line that goes right across?
yeah.
Those are called simian lines. I got them on both sides. Apparently, it's unique, but they said the first humans that walked on the earth had those kind of palms.
Wow. So Adamic means first humans?
Yeah, like Adam,
Hmm.
Adamic. Yeah.
So, but some people believe that there were people here before the Adam bloodline.
I would agree with that because we are living in an infinite space. It's not that finite. It's infinite.
So Patricia was saying, "Who is this person again?" And then Tara says Kumara, but I think she was talking about Drumvalo Melchizedek. I think
Melchizedek. Yeah. M
Melchizedek.
Melchizedek.
So after you had told us about him,
Mhm.
Angeline and I, we were driving, I believe, to somewhere, maybe to BC, and he was on Gaia and something from,
Mhm.
I think, the 80s or the early
Mhm.
80s, and
It's actually
we
very
li-
scientific.
we listened to him, and
Mhm.
it was fascinating. And he was saying that all of the people that were born here after the 80s, I think, were all, special children. Anybody who's born 80s or like, and have this, special connection that, aren't in so much of the programming as much as, everybody else in the matrix. They have that connection to source.
Mhm. It's true. Yep.
So it was pretty fascinating. So
Mhm.
tell us about the Unify. How what you did there, what Unified, because I know you said that there was at one point you guys were getting millions of views on, your
Yeah.
guys's some of the stuff that you guys were putting out.
Unify is a culmination of like they're just passionate people who want to connect, and really the directive in the beginning um, is that they were creating a platform. So using a platform like Facebook was the main thing back then. Back in 2012 is when they were founded, nonprofit organization to create unity as well as uh, I would say really intentional events like global synchronized meditations that it became all about that. So the meditators in Dharamsala, I believe, as well as the different uh, stupas and um, temples around the world, they would synchronize on particular dates, on portal dates, like World Yoga Day, World Peace Day, World Spirit Day, World Water Day. So those were like really big key events. One fascinating because um, they're really they really look at the data. So the what do you call that? You can go into your Facebook and you can see your insights, right? You can see all the data. So where there was a global synchronized meditation, we were also working with heart math. Are you familiar with heart math?
I remember you told us about
Yeah.
that when we came and saw you.
Yeah. So they have different. They are measuring devices that are put around the world. So let's say, and it's been from years ago that it wasn't a thing, but there was this device that was actually distributed. So when there were events that happened in the world, like 9/11, they would see synchronizations of zeros and ones, which was very fascinating. And now they have these different measuring devices that actually measure the Schumann frequency. I don't know if you've seen those graphs after a
like
global
like the
synchronization.
like the Schumann resonance.
Yeah, Schumann resonance. It looks like this blue one with a bunch of white fuzzy things.
Yeah.
So we looked at that every time we did a global synchronized meditation with, and it wasn't just us, it was the whole world. There would be these spikes and drops at particular times. It was really interesting. And it was around the time of meditation that everyone was meditating together. So there was power in that. And it, though, I forgot what year it was, but there was a ceasefire too during this war. Um, and it was intentional. I remember the last big event that I did with them was was a global synchronized prayer and meditation for the Amazon fires. We imagined lots of rain coming. I think it was the very next day, a lot of rain came falling down. It made news. So we met behind the scenes saying, hey, this is pretty fascinating, isn't it?
So were you guys
We're not
running around?
claiming that we caused that, but it's like pretty interesting.
Were you
Let's look
going
at the
doing the rain
data.
dance? We want rain. We
It's just
want
imaging.
rain.
Yeah, just image. And that's part of the heart imagery. That's why when we go into heart imagery, it's more powerful than what you can probably feel it. Some people can feel it when they hear that term, but it's even more profound when you go through the exercises.
Yeah, very cool. So
Mhm.
Unify was a meditation portal then, I guess, for global meditation. And
Yeah,
then,
and people got connected, and there's so many things kind of stemmed off of it. But its main center point was global synchronized meditations.
and tell us a little bit about yourself, because we got about 10 minutes left.
10
So
minutes.
tell
Okay.
us a little bit about your podcast that you were doing.
Oh, that was called The Bridge on Awake TV Network, and it was centered around ForceField EMF and the Omni cards that came up as a solution to what we really were talking about is the effects of magnetic frequency, artificial man-made ones, what kind of effects they had on the human as well as the biological chemistry, right? On plants, on even water. We had crystallography taken as a test of before and after spring water, natural spring water. The crystallography is hexagonal in shape, and then within 20 minutes exposed next to a Wi-Fi router, it's destroyed when you take another freezer sample of it. We take that freezer sample that's destroyed, melt it down, and put it on top of the Omni card. In 20 minutes, it goes back to the hexagonal shape
Original
because
shape.
seeing is
Wow.
believing, right? So people can do these. Like I've done various different studies years ago. Even I don't know if you've heard of uh, crystallography was birthed by Dr. Masaru Emoto. You familiar with him?
Yep.
Yeah. So Vita Austin out of Australia took it to the next level. Long after he passed away, or even during, because I believe she's followed his work for a long time. And she's the one who actually tested our Omni cards. She didn't know what it was. I said, "Can you test this?" Yeah, and then she said, "This is whatever this is. It's pretty phenomenal." Yeah, so I got into that research, and then so it kind of it overlaps because everything's again it's going back to vibrational. But vibrational you can't really measure specifically, but when you go into the work and research of Nassim Haramein, it's very specific. They measure it. I'm not wearing the crystal right now, but that was also fine ground with a laser, 1/10,000th of a micron in accuracy. So, with great technology comes great responsibility, right? It can either
100%.
go really good or really bad. But
Just a quick backtrack here. Elizabeth was asking, how can she connect with Unify? Is it still around? How can she
yeah,
connect with it?
I'm
And
not. I've been away from Unify for over a year now. I've helped out early this year for World Water Day. Uh, uh, they should still be existing on Facebook.
Facebook
That's
page. So you would just
the Facebook is the mhm,
type in
uh,
Unify.
yeah, facebook.com slash unify UNIFY. It's a pretty big community. The average activity there engagement is 20 million per month.
Wow.
Yeah, that's a
Yeah,
lot.
that's phenomenal. So in your
Yeah.
podcast, you guys were discussing a lot about the water, and you're bringing a lot of scientists
Yes,
on. Is
on my
that
podcast, it was getting connected, because I was still in research phase, early research phase. So my very first guest actually was Dr. Martin L. Pall, Pall. He's the one who coined the term VGCCs, which is voltage gated calcium channels,
Hmm.
where the calcium that sits on top of the outside of the surrounding tissue of the cell, it's got hairs, it's calcium, and when exposed to even 2G, 3G, 4G, and 5G, that cell bursts and this calcium gets kicked inside the cell. The mitochondria kicks it back out and the cell shrivels. And that process is called, it's on the tip of my tongue, oxidization. Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah. So the oxidization of a cell. The good thing is when you take away what's causing it, that cell actually can repair itself over time. And with tools, vibrational tools, it can help harmonize the disharmony that's coming in
Like certain
into your field.
frequencies?
Yeah. Yeah.
That's amazing. So you had lots of these doctors, scientists, people to
Doctors,
come on, and
scientists. Yeah.
you were interviewing them?
Hmm. Yeah. It would be once a week. That was intense. I did 3 seasons.
3 seasons of this, and then
Yeah.
now you would maybe explain a little bit about ForceFielDEMF.com and what you're currently doing right now, how people can connect with you, and what you can help provide people with right now.
Yeah, Kumara at, you can see my name written there on the screen, at ForceFieldEMF.com. That's running on the bottom there. You can email me any questions. We also have started a Instagram page. So the vision is to have that more interactive. Under Instagram, it's OmniCard, OMNIQARD. I had fun with that word because it's Omni card, because it looks like a card. Is that solution? I don't have it with me right now. It's in my room. And QARD is quantum alignment resonance device. So it looks like a credit card, about 3 to 4 millimeters in thickness, and it's designed to harmonize the field that's around you. It has a field of 6 to 10 feet in radius, omnidirectionally. That's why it's called OmniCard. Yeah, so that is something, and it's all made of natural materials. The plastic on the outside is made of non-GMO corn, and inside it does have a crystalline base line, kind of tuning fork-like formation, made of 9 proprietary natural metals, including the one I'm allowed to disclose, which is bismuth. Yeah. You might want to type it out for them. Not too sure. OmniCard, OM. So Oscar, Mike, November, India, and then card, Quebec, Alpha, Romeo, Delta.
OmniCard with a Q?
Yeah, instead of a C. So that I've got a few things up on Instagram. It's pretty new, but I don't want to overcrowd it. I don't want to overdo it for people. So just eventually people can start sharing with the OmniCards that they have. That's right.
Yeah, so OmniCard. So
Yeah.
again, any last words that you wanted to share? Thank you very much. This was,
Thank you.
the missing
Thank
link
you.
is about love inspiring new knowledge. You've definitely been giving lots of new knowledge here for us. Like, this was amazing. We've had lots of people here and stick around. There's still lots of people here with us. So, you're definitely a fascinating man, and definitely the energy, the
Thank you.
force is strong with you, brother.
Oh, thank you. And so with you. And it takes people like you to share to strengthen that, right? Yeah, I'm getting messages already. So I'll be responding. Thank you.
Awesome. Lots of thank yous. Any final words you wanted to share with everybody? You were able to explain everything you wanted to on your website?
Yeah. Keep my last words. I would say just stay curious, and any new knowledge that you may come across, take it with a grain of salt. Sometimes I take it with a big mine of salt. And then do your cross-referencing and your own research, and then just stay, because that's the only way to stay resonant within yourself. And because the ego is your biggest enemy. Like, ego in small doses, it's like a fight or flight. Cortisol, you know how that works. To me, ego is like cortisol. It's there for a purpose. It's like a deer caught in the headlights. It's only meant for a short burst, and you cannot sustain that, because sustaining anger, deceit, or animosity, those are actually cancer-causing agents that your
And
body creates.
and
Cortisol,
will destroy you.
yes. So keep resonant inside, no matter what's going on. If something's really bugging you, there are solutions out there. If you can't get to the solutions, turn to your community that is actually quite resonant and strong with you. But always look for the higher truth and things.
That's beautiful.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Jesse.
Thank you so much. You're an amazing man. I'm, honored to call you my friend and brother. Thanks for sharing this time with us here today. We've got 2 more interviews, one starting in about 4 minutes. Annette, she was, sex trafficked in Hollywood when she was a very young child. And, she's got quite the story. She's doing a march for, victims, to help raise money for victims of, sex trafficking and stuff. So
Good for her for speaking out.
yeah, and well, she's because some of the people that she's been involved with are high-ranking senators and politicians in the States and stuff. So she's not going to be here on video. She's going to just be on audio, and we're going to bring Penny back. So Penny was also an MK Ultra person. We've had her on a show before, so she's kind of going to be here at a go-between. We've got that, and then Raylene Short is coming up at 11 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and she's like a quantum healer and very fascinating woman. So that's going to be another interesting interview. So thanks again very much, and when I come back to Edmonton, I'll definitely have to come and
Please
see
do.
you.
Yeah,
And
any support you and Angel need, just let me know.
Sounds good, brother. Thank you so much for all you do and for helping us, in that time of need when, Angeline needed it. So we thank you, love you, sending blessings, and we'll see you all in a few minutes for, the second missing link of the day. Bye, everyone.